everyone. Welcome to the Tablelands Regional Council Planning meeting for February. Could I remind everyone to turn off their devices or put them on silent mode? Do we have any apologies? No. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. Item 5, do we have any declarations, conflicts of interests by councillors or senior officers? No, thank you. We'll go straight to item 8.1. Atherton Veterinary Investments, 114 122 Herberton Road, Atherton, MCU 22-0028. Could I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew is moving and Councillor Wilts is seconding. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to, I'm happy to move the motion, but with a slight amendment. And Kelly has sent that out to everybody, and I'm not sure whether it's on the board or not.
Can I just point of order if you don't mind? This is just a point of order. You moved the officer's recommendation. You moved in second. And Councillor Cardew wants to make an amendment. So basically, you would have to move, or someone would have to move an amendment to get a second.
That's correct. Yeah. Good point.
I'm happy to move as an amendment for the officer's recommendation.
James, strictly speaking, if you're the mover of the motion, you shouldn't be moving an amendment to the motion in terms of the actual meeting procedures. That should be moved by someone else.
Well, I seconded it, so.
If there's a change that's agreed by the mover and the seconder, you can accept that.
Good to go.
Whatever.
Well, look, we just need to look at the amendment to see how significant it is, Kev. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been on email in the last half hour, so I haven't seen the amendment myself.
Yeah, Kelly sent it through Tuesday,
Oh.
9:51 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah. So all it relates to is the condition where the dividing fence. They've asked for the original condition asked for fencing on both the northern and eastern boundaries.
Oh yeah, I did read that. Yes.
And the amendment is just to be in two parts for the eastern boundary. They're happy to do whatever. They're happy to put the northern boundary fencing up. It's just on the eastern boundary, the property owner on the other side, their lot is already heavily vegetated, and the property owner is in agreement to not have the fence there. So the amendment reads there that either they can put the fence up with the landscape, or just put the landscaping in and no fence. There's already a fence along there. Otherwise, it just creates a corridor. So that's it. That was a minor amendment that I wanted to bring up.
If the mover and seconder are happy with that, then it can be incorporated without the need for a formal amendment to the motion.
So yeah, Councillor Cardew as the mover, you're satisfied with that amendment?
Yeah, with the amendment, yeah.
And Councillor Wilts as the seconder, you're satisfied with that amendment?
And just further to that, I mean, I'm happy with everything else. The applicants agreed to all the other conditions. I think that's been there since I was a boy, and it's good to see something good on it eventually. Yeah, so I'm happy with that, if everyone else is.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Wilts?
No, more than happy with it. I agree with that one. It'll be good. It allows then for perhaps some development of the intersection down there as well, where they're moving from.
Very good. Councillor Hodge?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm as well happy with. I've gone through the conditions, and as we spoke previously, that lots of times conditions are agreed to, just to get it approved, and then it's got to come back to us and for an NDN, and, but I can't see anything in here that's going to happen, but I think it's all really, all fine, so. That's right.
Councillors, anyone else like to talk or ask a question on this one? Kelly and Dan, is there anything you'd like to know? All right, we have a mover and a seconder of an amended motion. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 8.2, Far North Hotels Proprietary Limited, minor change of development approval, MCU Food and Drink Outlet, ROL, Lot 1 and Lot 13, 69 Main Street and Kennedy Highway, Tolga, MCU 21-0025. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge is moving. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cardew. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm happy with the adjustment of the conditions. Just one, we received yesterday, it's very similar. We received a 0.3 for the officer's recommendation yesterday from the manager, Mr. Reason, yesterday, that basically what it was, the applicant in all of this has asked for a 8-year payment plan. I was contacted yesterday by not the consultant but himself, saying, yep, 8 years is a real stretch, and it shouldn't have been 8 years, and he apologised for that. And so he requested for a 3-year payment term of 6 months. He actually asked for monthly payments, but I said, look, that's too much administration. But I said, look, I'll bring it up today. I can't process it today because we haven't got the process ready for payment plans under the Planning Act at this point in time. So I said, what I'll do is I'll see if I can get support for this 0.3, and it'll come back to the next planning meeting. It does say here that it says that council notes the applicant's request that it be allowed to pay the infrastructure charges half-yearly instalments over 8 years, and request that a further report outlining all relevant considerations be prepared by officers and tabled at the ordinary meeting of council on Thursday, the 23rd of February. I would probably like to change that to give the officers more time to make it the planning meeting on the 9th of March.
So councillor, you'd move the officer's recommendation then?
Yes, but I'm adding that in.
So this is another, this is an amendment.
It's probably similar to the first one. It's not that it's off the floor, but everyone has received that. But you know.
Is the amendment up there?
Yeah.
That's it? So councillor Cardew, you seconded that.
Is it still over 8 years?
No, what it is, it's going to be transferred to the next planning meeting to get the process right. So he wants a three-year payment plan, but what I said to him, I'm not going to move that today. What I'm going to move is that particular motion that brings a report back to council with how the process will work. We technically, at the moment, cannot, I'll go to the manager for like, we cannot really technically approve, even if we wanted to do the plan, because it's, maybe you can explain it better, Kelly, but it's at the moment, they want it sitting outside the infrastructure charges.
Why wouldn't we just pass the officer's recommendation? What's wrong with that?
Well,
That's obviously better for council.
but I want 0.3 included. The officer's recommendation at this point in time has not got 0.3 in it. We received the email yesterday with 0.3, if we wanted to add it to.
Councillor Clifton?
I think Councillor Edmonds first.
Oh, sorry, councillor.
So I actually can't quite understand this. So Peter's gone to the applicant when, and Mark Cole and I are going to do something different. So I really don't understand a whole lot of this. Can someone sort of explain, like, and town planners explain? I think
Well,
I'm not sure what's happening
We
here.
might go to Kelly.
No, I'm happy to do that, as
Yeah.
Mr Mayor. The officer's recommendation is clear. The officer's recommendation has been reinforced by the executive manager in email to council, and the rationale for that. It's a matter for you, Mr Mayor, whether you accept a motion from Councillor Hodge in respect of adding or changing that recommendation in some respect, but it's also equally competent to accept a mover of the recommendation as it stands. So I don't know whether Councillor Hodge has proposed a motion and whether you've accepted that proposed motion. Sorry, it was just doing something else.
Yeah,
I want to
councillor
say I wasn't paying attention, but I wasn't paying attention.
Hodge and councillor Cardew have moved the officer's recommendation.
Then you're speaking against the motion and foreshadowing that should the motion be lost, that you'll be moving an alternative motion. That's the correct process.
I think what I should do is I'll withdraw the motion, right, moving it, because then what I'll do is foreshadow an amendment to that motion.
Okay, councillor, I would councillor Hodge that the chair should not accept that as an amendment. It's a significant deviation from the motion as it stands before council, and this motion would need to be defeated and a motion moved in its place.
Councillor Hodge, this agenda item before council has had extensive work by our executive manager and senior planner. It's gone backwards and forwards. We've received some amendments during the week. A lot of work's gone into this. It concerns me that we're always trying to fine tune an agenda item before council on the floor. It's quite a, we all know this is quite a long process, this one. It's been a fairly long build and development. I'm just concerned that we're trying to get a bit too cute as councillors. Yeah, changing things. We've received very good advice from our planning team. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, can I just ask Kelly, his infrastructure charges now is around about 100,000, is that right?
108,000.
108,000. And what's the payment plan at the moment as it stands?
So the payment plan is in accordance with the Planning Act, which is that payment becomes due and payable on commencement of use of the material
So
change
the
of
whole
use.
lot Junior.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, and he's asking for, the owner is asking for a payment plan to be introduced. Now, under the legislation that come to light just recently, we can't prove anything over a 3-year term, is that correct?
So through the chair, there's two slightly different pieces of legislation that we're looking at. The Planning Act doesn't particularly prohibit you in terms of how you structure a payment plan, but I'm going to get the words wrong, Gary, the
Statutory Bodies Financial Arrangements Act.
limits what council can endorse over 3 years without consent.
Okay, so we've got a 3-year window there that council can make a decision without having to go outside of council. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so we could, through an amendment today, put a plan in place that incorporates up to 3 years. Is that right?
Through the chair, yes, technically you could. I would caution against it until council's had the opportunity, if you are intending to consider it, to consider all of the risks and benefits of making a decision like that. in terms of the broader impact on development regionally in terms of payment plans for material change of use and infrastructure charges.
So what you're saying is could be dire consequences for us and, you know, and setting precedences and things like that, is that right?
I think there could be potential precedents set, and my preference for council would be that if you are contemplating it, would be to fully inform you of those potential consequences so that you can make an informed decision.
And that's why I've moved it. I don't want to move a payment plan today. I want to get the process correct. That's what the discussion is about. And that's all that amendment is to bring it, all that information back to council at the next planning meeting. I don't want to make a decision now that hits you in the face.
Even if it is brought back
Yep.
at a later date, the consequences are still going to be the same, is that right?
That's right. And I'm happy to, in principle, outline those consequences, which are basically that there is no distinguishing elements from this approval to any other of your material change of use approvals that fall outside of your current incentive policy. And I think council would be very hard pressed if you were to support this request to say no to any other requests for deferral or payment plans for infrastructure charges, which has a impact on your budget assumptions in terms of infrastructure charges collection, and is a fairly significant shift for most regional councils in terms of infrastructure charges collection. I should say all councils, not just regional councils.
I'll just make one point, and I wouldn't say it's unreasonable, but I could put it another way. What you're saying, but I just don't want to make that decision now based on knowing all the perceptions, because I tell you now, if you can't give this particular person who has invested very heavily in the TRC, you take all their investments out. I don't know, there wouldn't be hardly any investments going on, but putting that aside, if you couldn't give something, a 3-year plan to this person, I can't see how you would give it to anybody, ever. I know you're setting precedents, but we need to make decisions based on the facts. And what we're doing, that's not what's happening. We've got a view, we've got some perceptions of what may happen. Setting precedents, yeah, fine.
Councillor Hodge, I think the advice from our executive manager is the best professional advice we can get, and we need to respect it.
Well,
I strongly recommend that we pass the officer's recommendation.
Well, I take your point, and I respect your point. I'm elected here to represent the people, no one else. I respect your point, what you're saying, but that's as far as I'll take it.
Yeah,
You know, I have my opinions as well, and how business works and whatever else, and how I represent the people who I represent. Just not my division, but the whole. And I do respect I talk to them every day, nearly. And I do respect their opinion. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, they're an officer and I'm a councillor. There's a different line. But anyway, if you don't want to do it, fine. Let's, I don't care.
Councillor Clifton?
I'm not sure, it's a point of order really, Mr Mayor, where exactly are we? Are we debating the motion, are we debating a possible amendment, or what are we?
My belief is Councillor Hodge moved the motion, the officer's recommendation, Councillor Cardew seconded it, and that's where we're at. That's where we're at. We've still got the officer's recommendation that's been moved and seconded.
Okay.
Councillor Hodge said he was planning to withdraw it, but that didn't happen. So we've still got the officer's recommendation moved and seconded.
That means someone else can move an amendment.
The matters being discussed are not in my view an amendment. recommendation is clear. That recommendation has been supported by further correspondence by way of email from the executive manager since then. I'm saying it's a substantial change and should not be considered as an amendment to the motion. That's all. Only a technical matter. Doesn't stop council getting to where they want to be, but
Therefore, it can be moved later on the floor.
if this motion is defeated,
No, even if it's passed. Point 3.
I think the recommendations and the report taken as a whole will make that rather odd. But it could be.
Councillor, question? Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is an embarrassing situation that we're placed in right at the moment. We must not let this happen to us again. And my view is that I'm happy to support the officer's recommendations. I think that the applicant's contribution to the Tableland Regional Council has been significant and welcome, and I hope that it continues. I note, and I don't mind how it's recorded, that I think that he should speak to his planning consultant about the adoption of such a cavalier approach as 8 years. I regard that application as a piece of absurdity where the developer and the owner needs to have a really stern word to the person who's acting on his behalf. I therefore, and I quite feel strongly about that, he's thrown down the rag to this council. I don't think he really meant to throw it down like that. Whatever point he was trying to make, from my perspective, has failed, but that doesn't mean that he isn't making, I believe he should make in the future, extensive contributions to us, and we'll welcome him. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, I suggest we put the motion to the test. We have a mover, we have a seconder. Councillor Cardew.
Can I just ask something else, Mayor, before we do that?
Sure.
There's lots of other things in here. I was just going to ask the planner if she could go through those other changes that are proposed in here as well. That would be okay.
I'll defer to Dan if that's okay.
I'll give a quick summary. I'll just run through the list. So basically, condition 3.6, that was about, initially we had, so there was a bottle shop addition to the building that we required an awning to be constructed onto. That is now being removed. Same applies to condition 3.7. That related to 3.6. So they've actually got an approval for the awning attached to the existing part of the building, the pre-existing part of the building, I should say. So that was just about the awning, which is now redundant. The frontage works, that was just some clarification to the condition because the applicant, I believe, was interpreting the condition such that they were going to have to do a clay paved footpath rather than a concrete footpath. So it's just a bit of tidy up there to clarify that we actually intended for them to do a concrete footpath. Outdoor lighting, they're basically saying that that was a matter for the building certifier to enforce via the National Construction Code, which they didn't really give much more justification beyond that. So there were submissions to in regards to any nuisance impacts from outdoor lighting. There's assessment benchmarks in the planning scheme. There's Australian standards referenced in the planning scheme in regards to outdoor lighting. I believe it's on council to enforce those matters, not a private certifier. So I disagree with that one. Noise nuisance, we agreed with representations on that. There was probably a bit of overlap there between what council was trying to achieve and what is actually the jurisdiction of workplace health and safety and also the Office of Liquor and Gaming. So there was a bit of redundancy there in terms of what liquor and gaming are required to enforce in terms of nuisance noise impacts. So we removed those conditions. Landscaping and fencing. Originally, the format of that building was going to be such that there was going to be an open-sided deck down the eastern side with some custom wall type fencing, which that has the potential if you had a band playing or something to rattle and create a bit of noise nuisance. the format of the building has changed such that that's now a solid wall. So the condition required them to actually make that some sort of noise attenuation fencing. It's no longer required, so that was removed. They had asked to remove the requirement for concrete edging where the landscape strip interfaced with the rail trail. I disagreed with that representation because I feel there's potential there for not only intrusions by bikes and whatever else into the landscaping feature, but also the potential for, say, mulch and vegetation to actually find its way onto the bike path, which could be an issue. And contaminated land, they were basically asking us to remove some of the time frames for covering up the fill and returfing any exposed areas of contaminated land. I spoke to our environmental health officer and development engineer about that, and they feel that those timeframes, given the risks to the public, they felt that those timeframes were reasonable. And they're to the satisfaction of council's delegated officers in any case, so if we need to relax them, we can have a discussion about that.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. Thank you. Notices of motion. Business without notice. No confidential items today. The next meeting of council will be the fourth Thursday of this month. Being no further business, meeting closed.
Thank you.